everyone. Welcome to the third prose unit, Glimpses of the Past, in your syllabus prescribed by the CBSE. In this video, I will introduce the prose to you, then explain it line by line. In the end, we will discuss the key points in the prose. So let's begin. This prose is a picture story that depicts the history of India's freedom struggle between 1757 to 1857. It contains excerpts from S.D. Sawant's drama titled Glimpse of the Past. S.D. Sawant or Shivaji Sawant was born on 31st August 1940. He died on 18th September 2002. Sawant was a famous Marathi novelist and writer. This text focuses on the expansion of the British rule in India and the first sparks of revolt by the Indians. So let's begin reading the text now. This text is divided into 9 parts. The first part is titled Martyrs. This picture shows the famous singer Lata Mangeshkar singing "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logon," the famous patriotic song, at a meeting in Delhi in January 1963. You can also see Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Lal Bahadur Shastri Ji in the picture attending this gathering in Delhi. The second part, titled The Company's Conquests 1757 to 1849, depicts how the British East India Company slowly increased and expanded its influence over India over a period of 100 years. With its superior weapons, the British East India Company extended its power in 18th century India. In the map showing the British territory in 1765, they had occupied only a small portion of India. However, due to the availability of superior, better weapons, they extended their powers. Indian princes were short-sighted. That upstart Raja, call the English merchants, they will help me defeat him. The people had no peace due to such constant fights. The rivalries helped the East India Company, and it could easily subdue the Indian princes one by one. The Indian princes kept on fighting with each other. They took the help from the British to defeat each other. This short-sightedness, or the inability to think of the long-term plans, led to the expansion of British territory. They kept defeating small princes and capturing their territory using their superior weapons, like we said. A far-seeing ruler like the brave Tipu of Mysore fought the British till he died fighting. Now there were also some Rajas like Tipu Sultan who were far-sighted. They could see how the British were using the Indian princes to expand their own territory, their own rule over India. He fought the British till his last breath. And how did Indians react to this conquest? Thank God there's peace. No more wars and looting by thugs. God sent the British. Our destiny is linked with them. The white man has killed or dethroned our kings. Some kings were not good, but after all, they were of this land. Now we have become slaves of foreigners. So the princes, as shown in the picture on the left, were very happy with the British. They considered them their friends. The public, on the other hand, could see how they were defeating and dethroning the kings. The people knew that they were slowly becoming slaves in the foreigners' rule. The third part is titled British Rule 1765 to 1836. Religious leaders preached ideas like untouchability and child marriage. One who crosses the sea loses his religion. All the misery in the world is due to women. Indians had lost self-respect. The British scorned them. The natives are unworthy of trust, incapable of honesty. True, Your Honor, but I am honest. So the religious leaders in India taught the Indians orthodox and backward ideas such as untouchability, child marriage, and superstitions about crossing the sea. This was the reason that British scorned, meaning despised, hated the Indians. They thought that Indians are uneducated, untrustworthy, and dishonest. Being merchants, the British wanted quick profits. Their heavy taxes forced farmers to abandon their fields. But your men are taking all my crops, sir. You are still in arrears. If you don't pay next week, I will send you to jail. Still, the British invented other methods which gave them more profits. The East India Company's laws began to cripple the Indian industries. The goods manufactured in England should be import duty-free when brought to India. That's a good idea. The British policies ruined the expert artisans and their businesses. Inevitably, famines followed between 1822 and 1836. 15 lakh Indians died of starvation. The British who had come to India had come for trading purposes. They made sure that they always got profit even if the common man had to suffer. You can see how they threatened the poor Indians to pay their dues or else they'll be put in jail. They had no mercy for the poor peasants who were unable to pay their dues. The British also made a strategy to remove any import duty on foreign goods. This means that they decided that any charges that were imposed on British products when brought or shipped to India would be removed. This means that these foreign products would be available at cheaper rates in India. This resulted in people buying machine made goods instead of their Swadeshi handmade goods. This led to the crippling or destruction of the Indian industries. The expert artisans or craftsmen started to face huge losses and slowly the businesses died. As more and more people had no money to survive on, multiple famines followed between 1822 to 1836. 15 lakh Indians died during these famines due to hunger and starvation. So slowly their businesses were being killed, they were forced to pay arrears or they were put in jail, and slowly their livelihood was being taken away. Indians were dying due to starvation. The fourth part is titled Ram Mohan Roy 1772 to 1833. Ram Mohan Roy, a learned man from Bengal, understood what was wrong with the country. Let us not despise ourselves. Our ancient culture is great. We are capable of greater achievements. We must reform our society. Superstitions have been ruining us. He told his wife Uma, "Cows are of different colors, but the color of the milk is the same. Different teachers have different opinions, but the essence of every religion is the same." So Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a Bengali social reformer. He was an educated man who believed that the ancient Indian culture was great. However, we got stuck in superstitions and other backward practices such as sati pratha and child marriage. He felt that all religions have the same core. They teach the same values to people. He was attracted by science and modern knowledge. Knowledge should be practical and scientific. He started newspapers, but the suspicious British stopped them in 1823. He crossed the seas and went to England to see what made the British powerful. He told them, "We accept you as rulers. You must accept us as subjects. But you must remember the responsibility a ruler owes to his subjects." So Roy was a man interested in science and modern knowledge. That is practical and scientific knowledge. To reform the Indian society, he started many newspapers, but the British got suspicious and banned them in 1823. Roy also went to England and addressed the British, telling them that as rulers they had certain responsibility towards their subjects. So, as a social reformer, he tried a lot to reform the Indian society to get rid of the superstitions and the backward practices that Indian society had been famous for among the British. The next part, titled Oppression 1765 and 1835. The British continued to oppress Indians. In 1818, they passed Regulation 3. Under it, an Indian could be jailed without trial in a court. The British officers in India drew big salaries and made fortunes in private businesses. By 1829, Britain was exporting British goods worth 7 crore rupees to India. Governor General Bentinck reported back home, "The bones of cotton weavers are bleaching the plains of India." The British prospered on the company's loot while the Indian industries began to die. We just read that Ram Mohan Roy requested the British to be responsible as rulers, but they continued to oppress the Indians. They did not listen to him at all. They passed laws such as Regulation 3, under which any Indian could be jailed without a trial in court. In terms of business, by 1829, Britain was sending goods worth 7 crore to India. They made huge profits selling these foreign items while the Indian industries died. The British officers also drew huge, handsome salaries and also earned through private businesses in India. This quote by Governor General Bentinck shows how poor Indian peasants were dying and starving under the British administration, while they all were making a lot of profit. The next part is titled Dissatisfaction, 1835 to 56. Education in India was in Persian and Sanskrit. In 1835, an Englishman named Macaulay suggested a change. "We should teach the natives through the English language." I agree. English education produced clerks to whom the British gave petty jobs. Incidentally, it also produced a generation of intellectual. We must educate our brothers and try to improve their material conditions. We must convey our grievances to the British Parliament. By 1856, the British had conquered the whole of India. So, this part talks about the ancient Indian education system that was in Persian and Sanskrit. It got reformed by Macaulay in 1835. The plan was to teach Indians in English, to produce clerks, and to recruit them for other low paying petty jobs, small jobs. An unintentional positive outcome of this English education was that a lot of Indian intellectuals who could speak the language of the oppressor, meaning English, and could answer them back came up. So a lot of people learned English, and this generation was called the generation of intellectual, the generation of people who could think and they could answer the oppressors, the British, in their own language, in English. By 1856, British had conquered the whole of India. You can compare this map with that of 1785, where the British territory was really small. They cared little about the needs of Indians. Our kings have become puppets, and we have lost our old jobs and lands, and they're converting our brothers. You only talk, do something to drive them out. In the previous part titled Oppression, we read how Indians were jailed without any reason. Indian industries were also ruined due to foreign goods, and the British officials prospered by making profits. Now, the common people started to realize that their kings had become powerless, and the British were snatching away their lands, their jobs, and also their religion, right? The next part is titled Sparks 1855 to 57. This part talks about the first instances of dissatisfaction and revolt in the Indians in various walks of life. Taxes continue to ruin the peasants. In Bengal, the Santals who had lost their lands under new land rules became desperate. In 1855, they rose in rebellion and massacred Europeans and their supporters alike. Discontent was brewing in the East India Company's army too. The white soldier gets a huge pay, mansions and servants, while we get pittance and slow promotions. The Angrez asks us to cross the sea, which is against our religion. Who is the topiwala to abolish our age-old customs? Sipai Mangal Pandey attacked the adjutant of his regiment and was executed. Thousands of other sepoys also revolted. They were stripped of their uniforms, humiliated, and put in iron. We know that the Indian peasants were already suffering due to heavy taxes. Santals were a tribal community in Bengal, which is in present-day Jharkhand. When they lost their land, they rose in rebellion and they massacred. Massacred means killed the British along with their supporters. In the army also, the Indian soldiers were discontented because of the discrimination that they were facing. They had very low salaries and slow promotions. While the soldiers revolted, they were insulted and they were stripped of their uniforms. It was taken away from them and they were humiliated in front of everybody. Sipais like Mangal Pandey were killed by the British for revolting against them. Few Englishmen had cared to understand Indian custom or the people's mind. Oh, Brahmin soldiers, do you know that the grease on the bullet you have to bite is made from cow and pig fat? What? The white man has deceived us too. Soon chapatis were sent from village to village to tell the people that their emperor would want their services. Yes, all my village men will be ready. Similarly, lotus flowers circulated amongst Indian soldiers. The masses gave help and shelter to the patriots. Death to the foreigner. The soldiers were also angry because the grease on the bullets was made from the fat of pigs and cows. This was against the religious values of the Hindus and Muslim soldiers alike. To revolt against the British, people started to pass around chapatis or rotis. This was called the chapati movement, right? It was a signal. The chapati was a signal for everybody to be ready for war. Similarly, the Indian soldiers in the East India Company also circulated the lotus flower secretly amongst them. They also wanted to overthrow the British rule. So this was also a symbol that every soldier should be ready to revolt against the British. The next part is titled Revolt 1857. Then there was a violent outbreak in Meerut. The Sipais marched to Delhi. Long live our Emperor Bahadur Shah. The rebellion spread wider. Many landlords had lost their lands because of the British policies. They were sore. Sore means angry. The white man's rule must end. Yes, we will help you. We just read how the soldiers and the common people were ready to fight with the British. This led to a violent clash between British forces and the people at Meerut near Delhi. The soldiers ran away from the army and marched to Delhi to Bahadur Shah Zafar's palace. The rebellion spread wider in North India and violent clashes took place. Many landlords who were very angry because their lands were taken away by the British also participated in the revolt. This revolt is also known in Indian history as the Indian Rebellion of 1857. The final part is titled The Fight for Freedom 1857. Many former rulers like Begum Hazrat Mahal of Lucknow were bitter. They joined the upsurge against the foreigners. The white man has taken away my kingdom. Leaders like Maulvi Ahmedullah of Faizabad told the people, "Rise, brothers, rise! The Angrez is ruining our land." The people rose everywhere in Bareilly, Kanpur, and Allahabad. Azimullah Khan told Tantia Tope, "We should have Peshwa Nana Sahib as our leader in this war of independence." The patriots pounced upon the British and fought pitched battles all over North India. 80-year-old Kuvar Singh of Bihar received a bullet in his wrist. "Mother Ganga, this is my last offering to you." So the revolt spread from Delhi to different parts of the country. People like Begum Hazrat Mahal of Lucknow participated in the revolt. Maulvi Ahmedullah of Faizabad also motivated people to join the rebellion. This led people in Bareilly, Kanpur, and Allahabad in Uttar Pradesh to join the rebellion. So the rebellion spread far and wide all over the North India. Leaders like Tatya Tope, Peshwa Nana Sahib from Maharashtra, and Kuvar Singh from Bihar also attacked the British and laid their life for the country's freedom. Although the British won this rebellion and were successful in suppressing the revolt, this rebellion of 1857 paved the way for the Indian independence struggle. This was the beginning of the War of Independence that led to our final freedom in 1947. Let's move on to the conclusion towards the final key points in the prose. This text depicts the historical events in India during 1757 to 1857. So we saw how slowly British started to oppress Indians in their businesses. They started to take away their businesses. They started to levy heavy taxes over Indians, and finally how Indians rose and revolted against the British. So this text covers the history during these 100 years. India under the British rule was slowly being stripped of its wealth, land and other resources. Like I said, the land was being taken away because British were slowly annexing and expanding their territory. The resources were being taken away because raw material went from India to England, and then they brought back the English goods and sold it to the Indians again. So we were being stripped of our wealth, our land and other resources. Indians were systematically oppressed by the British in terms of trade, education, and other social policies and laws. So we just saw how they passed laws such as Regulation 3, where they could arrest Indians and no questions were asked, no trials were given. They wanted us to be educated in English just to make clerks and just to recruit us for low paying jobs. And obviously in terms of trade, they took all of our lands away. They imposed heavy taxes so that the peasants were the people who suffered the most. The petty fights between the Indian princes and the social and religious backwardness of people contributed in the British expansion. So, if you want to see why the British administration got a hold of the Indian subcontinent so easily, if you want to see the reasons behind the expansion of the British territory, there are two main reasons. The first are the Indian princes. Because they kept on fighting with each other, it was very easy to control them. Because they had petty rivalries with each other, the British saw a chance to take over them and to annex their territories, right? So they expanded like that. Also, the Indian people were not really educated. They were backward. They were preaching values such as sati pratha, untouchability, and all of these things. So British took an advantage and they expanded their own system, their own administration over Indians. A new era of educated intellectuals became India's hope for a change. So, how did the scenario change? When Indians were being educated in English, they saw that they could use the same language to answer back to their oppressors, right? So this became a ray of hope in the dark times. Indian intellectuals such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Rabindranath Tagore, and other people were educated in English. They started writing in English. A lot of English newspapers started to come up, and that's how British knew that their hold was weakening over India. In 1857, tired of British policies and annexures of lands and kingdoms, Indians rose in revolt at various places all over the northern India. This took the British and their administration by surprise. This revolt paved the way to the first freedom fight against British rule in India. So we saw how 1857 was a very important year because people had all sorts of problems. The soldiers were facing problems in the army, the Indian peasants were facing problems, the tribal population like Santals were facing a problem because their lands were being taken away. There were a lot of other nobles, landlords like Begum Hazrat Mahal, whose lands, whose entire kingdoms were taken away by the British people. All of these people were very angry with the British, and they collectively rose in various parts of the country. And this rebellion is termed as the Rebellion of 1857. Although we lost and the British were able to maintain their control and crush this revolution, but we still had a hope in our hearts that if we can manage this revolution, we can surely get rid of British in the coming times. So after 90 years, we finally got rid of the British in 1947. So that was it for this prose. Thank you so much.